Welcome back to BNC Live. I'm Tishani Whitlow. Wednesday, the Supreme Court will hear oral arguments to challenge the landmark Roe versus Wade case. Now, the case, Dobbs versus Jackson's women's health organization, centers on a Mississippi law that bans nearly all abortions after just 15 weeks of pregnancy. The outcome of the case could redefine the right to abortion in the U.S. Now, while the majority conservative Supreme Court will be prepared to change the course, of abortion rights nationwide. We'll have to wait and find out. Joining us now to weigh in on this discussion, we have Professor of Law at the Case Western Reserve University School of Law, Jonathan Adler, and also physician and founder of Empower Her Health, Dr. Alisha Ligget. Thank you both for joining us. So, Dr. Alisha, let's start with you. A central point in tomorrow's argument could be fetal viability. Now, that's the ability of a fetus to survive outside of the womb. Usually, according to Roe versus Wade, right, that was at 24 weeks of pregnancy. But Mississippi's law restricts abortions to just after 15 weeks. Can you please help us understand the argument here?
Yes, so basically what we mean when we say viability, we're basically acknowledging the point that the period under which a fetus is able to survive outside of the womb survive outside of the womb. And usually in medical terms, that's about 24 weeks based on the current technologies that we have available. Most of these abortion laws that we're seeing kind of come into effect are really trying to chip away at that by redefining what fetal viability means. So for example, we saw in Texas where they wanted to redefine that at 6 weeks where the fetal heart rate could be detected. And in Mississippi at 15 weeks. So they're really trying to, in a way, redefine what viability actually means and using that as a way to restrict access to care.
All right, Professor Adler, let's talk about that, redefining exactly what that is and what that means. Tell us more about that and how the Supreme Court will have to weigh in on that. Sounds complicated.
Well, it is complicated. And one of the things that the court appears to be concerned about is the fact that what constitutes viability is something that changes over time as technology improves, as the ability of doctors and hospitals to keep a fetus alive outside of the womb improves over time. But there's also a concern that whether a fetus is viable can depend on where that mother lives, what her access to healthcare has been, what sorts of technology or resources she has or her family has or are available locally. And there is a concern that creates a standard for when abortion must or must not be allowed that is somewhat arbitrary and perhaps irrational. And that's one of the questions the court will be considering tomorrow.
Yeah, Dr. Alisha, according to Dr. Adler, I mean, he made a great point. It's all about access to health care. It doesn't sound like it's cut and dry.
Yeah, absolutely not. This is definitely not a cut and dry issue. This is an issue that really intersects many different aspects of people's lives. It affects our ability to make decisions about our bodies. It affects our access to care, quality care. It affects our ability to have bodily autonomy and, of course, privacy, making decisions about our bodies amongst our family members and with our physicians. In addition to that, this raises the question about, what are the circumstances under which individuals have to make this decision? And that is different for every person, depending on, again, where they live, the circumstances under which they became pregnant, and what if they have access to care or not. So there are so many nuances to this question. And I think, providing these sweeping bans really is almost like a one-size-fits-all, but it's really a one-size-fits-none.
Yeah, Dr. Adler, we'll end this with you, sir. There are some folks that believe because the court is mainly made up of conservative justices, that Roe versus Wade could be ultimately dismantled. Can you talk about how Justice Brett Kavanaugh could play a part? I mean, he could be that weighing voice to decide which way this thing goes.
Well, certainly the newest justices could well cast the deciding vote. It's generally believed that most of the conservative justices think Roe versus Wade was wrongly decided and don't believe that it is a proper application of the Constitution. But they also have to weigh the question of whether or not that justifies overturning a decision that has been on the books for so long. And then if they do overturn it, what do they replace it with? Do we have a new standard based on a certain number of weeks of gestation? Do we say states are allowed to adopt whatever abortion laws they want, or something else? And so that's something that those justices that are unhappy with Roe versus Wade will have to consider.
All right, thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate the insight, and we'll have to see how this thing plays out starting tomorrow.